At the dinner, nobody understood the female billionaire CEO until the black waitress spoke Japanese. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get into the story. As the dinner continued, the tension in the air grew thicker. Derek Caldwell, the CEO of Valencer Biotech, was still trying to regain his composure after Naomi's unexpected intervention. His smirk had faded, replaced by a deep frown, as he tried to regain control of the situation. The guests at the table shifted uncomfortably in their seats, unsure how to respond to the situation that had just unfolded before them. They had come to this dinner expecting to make a deal, not to be caught up in a power struggle between two women they had underestimated. Kamiko Hayashi, who had been silent for most of the evening, remained calm, her posture still regal and poised. But there was a glint in her eye, a spark of satisfaction that was hard to miss. Naomi, on the other hand, stood with a quiet sense of pride, her shoulders back, her gaze steady as she moved around the table, continuing her duties. She hadn't meant to make a scene, but now that she had, she wasn't backing down. The shift in power was palpable. Kamiko had made it clear that respect was non-negotiable, and Naomi had amplified that message in a way no one saw coming. The night went on, but the energy in the room had changed. Every word spoken by Derek and the other executives was now measured, careful, as if they were walking on eggshells around Kamiko and Naomi. They had expected to walk into this dinner and dictate the terms of the deal, but they had miscalculated. Kamiko was no ordinary woman, and Naomi, though just a waitress, was far more perceptive than they realized. The conversation eventually returned to business. But now, every suggestion from Derek and his team was met with an answer from Kamiko that was succinct and calculated. She wasn't dismissive, but she wasn't overly eager to engage either. She was letting them come to her, making them work for the deal they so desperately wanted. The men around the table were growing more impatient, their usual tactics of dominance no longer working. The more they pushed, the more Kamiko pulled back, her silence speaking volumes. But it wasn't just Kamiko who had the room on edge. Naomi, ever observant, had noticed the way Derek had been treating Kamiko, his subtle condescension, his dismissive attitude toward her quiet strength. Naomi wasn't about to let that slide, and when she noticed him once again trying to undermine Kamiko's position, she knew it was time for another intervention. This time, Naomi wasn't just defending Kamiko's honor. She was standing up for herself, for every person who had been dismissed, overlooked, or belittled because of their appearance, their job, or their background. As Derek casually asked Naomi to refill his glass, she approached the table with a new sense of purpose. She stood tall as she poured his drink, making sure to place the bottle down firmly, her eyes meeting his for the first time since that moment of confrontation earlier. "You seem to think you know everything, Derek," she said, her voice clear and strong. "But you missed something earlier. It wasn't just Kamiko who you were disrespecting. It was me too. And I'm not the kind of person who forgets that easily." Derek, taken aback by her directness, opened his mouth to speak, but Naomi didn't give him the chance. "I don't need to prove myself to you, Derek," she continued. "But you should know that respect isn't earned through money or status. It's earned by how you treat others." The room fell silent again. This time, it wasn't because of a sudden shift in the atmosphere, but because Naomi had said something that cut through the tension like a knife. The men around the table looked down at their plates, clearly uncomfortable with the words that had just been spoken. Kamiko, still sitting at the head of the table, gave Naomi a subtle nod of approval, her eyes glimmering with a newfound respect for the young woman. Naomi wasn't just standing up for Kamiko now. She was standing up for herself, and in doing so, she had gained something far more valuable than any business deal: the respect of those who had once dismissed her as invisible. As the dinner continued, there was a noticeable shift in how the executives treated Naomi. No longer was she just a waitress. She was someone to be reckoned with. And as the evening wound to a close, the men who had come into the dinner expecting to walk away with a deal were now leaving with something else. an understanding of the true power that lay within the quiet strength of two women who had refused to be underestimated. The atmosphere at the table had shifted, but so had the dynamics of the entire room. The men, who had once looked down on Kamiko and Naomi, were now unsure of themselves. Derek Caldwell, once so sure of his ability to control every conversation, now found himself fighting to maintain any semblance of authority. Naomi had spoken up, and in doing so, had taken back the power in the room. Kamiko had watched the entire exchange, her calm expression never wavering, but in her eyes, there was something different, a glimmer of approval for the young waitress who had stood her ground. As the dinner progressed, Derek and the others struggled to regain control. Kamiko didn't need to say a word, her presence was enough. And yet, every time she responded, it was with a quiet certainty that left the men scrambling to keep up. Naomi had already proven that she wasn't going to sit back and let anyone walk all over her. She wasn't just standing up for Kamiko anymore. She was standing up for herself, for her dignity, and for the countless people who had been overlooked, ignored, or underestimated. Later in the evening, as the final courses were served, Naomi's instincts told her that something was about to change. She had seen how the other executives had reacted to Kamiko's quiet power, but now they were visibly trying to regain control, to reassert their dominance. Derek leaned forward again, his voice edged with frustration. "Kamiko," he began, "you're clearly a powerful woman, but in business, it's not just about respect. It's about results, and we need to see the numbers." Kamiko's response was as measured as ever. Respect is the foundation of any successful business. Without it, no partnership can last. You speak of results, but without trust, there can be no true collaboration. Derek bristled at the response, but he didn't dare push further. Instead, he turned to Naomi, as if trying to assert some form of control. "You know," he said with a smirk, "it's rare that someone in your position has so much to say. Maybe you should consider a different career path, one that involves a bit more speaking and a bit less serving." Naomi's eyes locked onto his, and for a moment, the room went still. She didn't flinch. She didn't back down. Instead, she stood tall, her voice steady and unwavering. "You think this is just about speaking? You think because I'm a waitress, my words don't matter?" The words hung in the air, the weight of her statement filling the space. "I may be serving food, but I'm not invisible. My words, my actions, my presence all matter. And you can't just dismiss that." The room was silent, the men around the table unsure of how to react. Derek, who had thought he could manipulate every situation, suddenly found himself at a loss for words. Kamiko, observing Naomi's calm confidence, couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. She wasn't the only one in the room who could command respect without raising her voice. Naomi had shown that true power didn't come from wealth or status. It came from the strength to stand up, even when the odds were stacked against you. As the night drew to a close, the executives were visibly shaken. The deal they had come to secure had lost its luster, as they realized that their attempts to dominate had failed. But what they hadn't counted on was that Kamiko's silence and Naomi's courage had spoken louder than any business proposal. Kamiko stood, signaling the end of the dinner. She turned to Naomi, her voice soft but filled with gratitude. "Thank you for speaking up tonight. Your words were more powerful than you know." Naomi smiled, her shoulders relaxing. "It's not just about speaking up for someone else. It's about speaking up for yourself, too." The executives, who had once seen Naomi as just another face in the crowd, now regarded her with a newfound respect. They realized that she wasn't just a waitress. She was someone who had the courage to challenge them, to stand up against their arrogance, and in doing so, had turned the tables. The deal, once all but signed, was now in jeopardy. Kamiko didn't need their deal, and Naomi didn't need their approval. What they had gained that night was something far more valuable: respect, not just from each other, but from everyone in the room. As the guests left the palisade, the powerful men who had come into the dinner expecting to dictate terms now left with a sense of humility they hadn't expected. Kamiko Hayashi had turned the tables without uttering a single word in anger. Naomi Brooks had shown them all the true power of standing firm, of knowing your worth, and refusing to be ignored. The night had ended, but the ripples of what happened at the dinner still lingered in the air. Kamiko Hayashi, the powerful yet silent tech CEO, had left the palisade with a sense of quiet satisfaction. She had always known the value of composure, of strategic silence, but tonight, the power of her presence had been amplified by Naomi Brooks. As Kamiko walked toward her car, she reflected on the dinner. The men who had once been so sure of themselves, so certain that they could dominate the conversation, were now scattered and uncertain. The deal they had come to secure had slipped through their fingers, but it didn't matter to Kamiko. She didn't need their business. What had been truly valuable was the demonstration of integrity and strength, something that couldn't be bought. Naomi had seen the same thing, the shift in the room, the way the powerful men who had walked in so sure of themselves had left humbled. Naomi wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was a woman who had shown them all what it meant to stand up for yourself, no matter the cost. She had taken back her power, and with it, she had earned the respect of Kamiko and everyone else in the room. As Naomi cleaned up the tables, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed inside her. She had been invisible to these people her whole life. She had learned to blend into the background, to remain unnoticed, just another face in the crowd. But tonight, she had stepped into the spotlight, and she hadn't just taken her place at the table, she had owned it. Kamiko had given her a subtle nod of approval when she had stood up for herself, and that had meant everything. For the first time in a long while, Naomi felt like she mattered. The next day, Naomi received a call. It was from a number she didn't recognize, but she answered anyway. Naomi Brooks? The voice on the other end asked. This is Derek Caldwell, from Valencer Biotech. Naomi's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected to hear from him after the dinner. I wanted to apologize for my behavior last night, Derek continued. The way I treated you and Kamiko, it was disrespectful, and I realize now that I was completely out of line. You were right about respect. I've been doing this business thing for so long that I've forgotten the basic principles of how to treat people. Naomi took a deep breath. She wasn't sure if she should be angry or just accept the apology. But in the end, she decided to let it go. She had already said her piece the night before. Thank you for the apology, Naomi said, her voice calm and steady. I hope you'll remember this lesson moving forward. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I will, Derek replied quietly. And if you're interested, Kamiko would like to meet with you. She was impressed by your courage last night, and she'd like to discuss some potential opportunities for you. Naomi was stunned. She had never expected anything like this. Kamiko Hayashi, one of the most influential women in tech, wanted to meet with her? It felt surreal. I'd be honored, Naomi replied, her voice thick with emotion. The next day, Naomi found herself sitting across from Kamiko in a sleek, modern office overlooking the city. Kamiko smiled at her warmly, her demeanor as composed as ever. I was impressed by your words last night, Kamiko said, her voice soft but firm. You showed a strength that many people would have missed. You didn't let anyone silence you, not even when they tried to treat you like you didn't matter. Naomi shifted in her seat, feeling the weight of Kamiko's words. I've spent my whole life being invisible, Naomi said quietly. But last night, I realized I don't have to be. I don't have to let people walk all over me just because of where I come from or what I do. I matter, and I'm not afraid to show that anymore. Kamiko nodded, her eyes filled with approval. That's exactly the mindset you need. And that's why I wanted to offer you an opportunity. We have a project coming up at Hoshiko AI, and I think you could be a great asset. Your intelligence, your insight, and your strength would be invaluable. Naomi's heart raced. This was the opportunity she had always dreamed of but never thought she would get. I don't know what to say, Naomi said, her voice trembling with emotion. Thank you. This means more to me than you'll ever know. Kamiko smiled, her expression genuine. You've earned it, Naomi. And don't forget, this is just the beginning. As Naomi walked out of Kamiko's office, she felt like a different person. She had taken a stand, and now she was being given the chance to show the world just how much she could accomplish. The world might not have seen her before, but now they would. Now, she had her seat at the table, and she wasn't going to let anyone take it away. Naomi's first few weeks at Hoshiko AI were a whirlwind. She had gone from a waitress at the Palisade to an important part of a groundbreaking tech company in the span of just a few days. The transition was overwhelming, but exhilarating. Every morning, she woke up with a renewed sense of purpose, ready to prove that she belonged at the table, not just as someone serving drinks, but as a valuable member of a visionary team. Kamiko had given her an opportunity, But Naomi knew that she had to earn it every single day. The office was a sleek, modern space with glass walls and open-concept workspaces. It was the kind of place where tech moguls and innovators shaped the future, and Naomi could feel the energy of ambition in the air every time she walked through the doors. She was no longer in the background. Now, she was in the room with some of the brightest minds in the industry, and she couldn't afford to let her past define her. The first few days were spent getting to know the team and learning about the company's ongoing projects. Hoshiko AI was working on revolutionizing medical robotics, specifically in the field of neurosurgery, and Naomi had been brought in to assist with research and operations. She quickly realized that the company was not just about creating cutting-edge technology. It was about solving problems that could save lives. Kamiko had made it clear that the company valued people with unique perspectives. And Naomi's background, her ability to navigate different worlds, was an asset, not a limitation. As the days went by, Naomi's confidence grew. She wasn't just taking notes in meetings anymore. She was offering her own insights, asking questions, and offering solutions. She remembered Kamiko's words, "Respect is the foundation of any successful business." Naomi had learned that respect wasn't something you demanded. It was something you earned through actions and results. One afternoon, Naomi found herself in a meeting with Kamiko and a few senior engineers. They were discussing a new development for a surgical robot designed to assist in delicate brain surgeries. The engineers were stumped on how to improve the robot's precision, and they were looking for new ideas. Naomi had spent her nights studying the data and brainstorming ideas. She hesitated for a moment, but then raised her hand. "I think I might have an idea," she said. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to her. Naomi had only been at Hoshiko for a short time, and she knew that speaking up in a room full of experts could be risky. But she had learned not to be afraid of sharing her thoughts. "What if we added a feature that would allow the robot to better simulate human touch?" Naomi suggested. "Not just in terms of sensitivity, but in the way it responds to pressure, the way the human hand does. I've seen it used in prosthetics, and I think it could make a difference here, especially in neurosurgery, where precision is everything." There was a pause before one of the engineers spoke. "That's actually an interesting idea," he said, his tone thoughtful. "We've been focused on the mechanics of the robot, but adding a sense of human-like touch could improve the procedure's accuracy." Kamiko, who had been quietly observing the conversation, looked at Naomi with a spark of approval in her eyes. "This is why I brought you here," she said. "Your perspective is invaluable. We'll look into it." Naomi felt a rush of pride. She had just contributed an idea that could change the trajectory of an important project, and she knew it wasn't just about being right. It was about being heard. Later that evening, as she sat at her desk in the quiet of the office, Naomi thought back to that dinner at the Palisade. She remembered the way she had spoken up. For herself, and for Kamiko, the way the room had shifted when she refused to be invisible anymore. That night had changed everything for her, but it had also set her on a path she was only beginning to understand. She had stepped into the world of the powerful, and now she was making her mark. Kamiko had given her a chance, but Naomi knew that it was her own determination, her own willingness to step up, that would define her success. The next few months were filled with new challenges and opportunities. Naomi continued to contribute her ideas, proving herself time and again. And with each passing day, she felt more and more like she belonged at the table. But she also knew that the true test of her success wasn't just about the work she did at Hoshiko. It was about how she could inspire others to follow her lead, to step into their own power and make their voices heard. Naomi's journey had only just begun, but she was no longer the waitress in the background. She was a leader in the making, and she wasn't going to let anything stop her. As Naomi settled into her new role at Hoshiko AI, she couldn't help but feel the weight of the opportunities before her. She had gone from being a waitress in a restaurant to becoming a key figure at a cutting-edge technology company, surrounded by some of the brightest minds in the field. But despite the recognition and newfound respect, Naomi never forgot where she came from. She still carried with her the quiet strength that had propelled her through life, from working multiple jobs just to make ends meet, to standing up for herself at that pivotal dinner. She had proven to herself that she wasn't invisible, and now, she was making sure the world knew it too. As the months passed, Naomi became more involved in the development of Hoshiko AI's surgical robotics project. Her unique perspective continued to add value to the team, particularly when it came to understanding human behavior and the ways in which technology could enhance human interaction. She contributed ideas about improving the human-robot interface, pushing the boundaries of what the technology could achieve. Kamiko had always been a strong mentor, but she had begun to rely more and more on Naomi's judgment and expertise. Kamiko's confidence in her abilities had never wavered, and Naomi began to realize that she was no longer just a part of the team. She was becoming a leader in her own right. One afternoon, Kamiko called Naomi into her office. The atmosphere was different this time, not just the usual business chat, but something more. Naomi took a seat, her heart beating a little faster than usual. "I've been watching you, Naomi," Kamiko began, her tone thoughtful. "You've come a long way since you first joined us. You've proven yourself, not just with your ideas, but with your leadership and your ability to bring people together." Naomi felt a flush of warmth spread through her chest. She had always respected Kamiko, but hearing her mentor speak with such admiration felt different. "Thank you," Naomi said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I've learned so much from you." Kamiko smiled. "Well, now it's time for you to take on a bigger role. There's a leadership position opening up in the team, and I think you're ready for it." Naomi's mind raced. Leadership? She hadn't expected this. But then, she thought back to everything she had overcome to get to this point. The moment at the dinner when she stood up for herself, the way she had earned her place at the table, and the countless late nights spent working at Hoshiko, never once doubting her worth. She had worked for this moment. "I'd be honored," Naomi replied, her voice steady but filled with excitement. "I won't let you down." Kamiko leaned forward slightly. "I know you won't," she said. "But this is just the beginning, Naomi. We're working on something that could change the medical world, and I want you to be part of that change. You've already proven that you're not afraid to take risks, to think outside the box. That's exactly what we need moving forward." The conversation left Naomi both humbled and inspired. She had come a long way from the quiet woman who served drinks at the Palisade. Now, she was being asked to take on a leadership role in one of the most innovative companies in the world. As Naomi left Kamiko's office, she couldn't help but feel the weight of the responsibility. But it wasn't a burden, it was a challenge, one that she was ready for. That evening, Naomi stood in front of a mirror in her apartment, looking at her reflection. The woman staring back at her wasn't the same person who had walked into the Palisade that night, quiet and unsure of herself. This woman had a voice. This woman had a purpose. And this woman had a seat at the table. She smiled at her reflection, feeling a sense of pride that she had never experienced before. No one could take away what she had earned. She had fought for it, and now she was ready to take on whatever came next. The next morning, Naomi walked into the office with a renewed sense of confidence. She was no longer just a member of the team. She was a leader, and she would make sure that her voice was heard. Kamiko had given her a chance, but it was Naomi who had shown the world what she was truly capable of. As she moved through the office, greeted by colleagues who now saw her as a force to be reckoned with, Naomi knew that the journey was far from over. She had proven her worth, but the road ahead was full of new challenges, new opportunities. And this time, she wasn't afraid to face them head-on. Naomi's first big project as a leader at Hoshiko AI was a game-changer. The company was on the verge of releasing its new robotic surgery system, and Naomi was tasked with overseeing the final stages of its development. The pressure was immense, but Naomi felt more prepared than ever. She had proven to herself that she was capable of more than just surviving in this world of power and innovation. She was thriving. The weight of her new role didn't feel like a burden anymore. It felt like a challenge she was ready to tackle head-on. The team was full of brilliant minds, but Naomi had something they didn't: her ability to see things from a different angle, to think beyond the conventional. Kamiko had always known this, but now, Naomi was proving it every day. The meetings became more intense as the launch date drew closer. The engineers, the designers, and the medical experts all brought their insights to the table, but Naomi had a unique perspective that set her apart. During one particular meeting, the team hit a roadblock. The system's precision was top-notch, but it lacked a crucial feature: the ability to predict human reactions in the operating room. This was where Naomi's background came in. She had worked in high-pressure environments before, in restaurants, in hospitals, and in life. She knew how important it was to understand human behavior in the midst of chaos. As the team discussed the issue, Naomi raised her hand. "We're focusing too much on the technology itself," she said. "We need to consider the human element. What if we added a feedback system that could sense the surgeon's stress levels and adjust accordingly?" The room went silent for a moment. The idea was unconventional, but it made sense. Naomi had just bridged the gap between human instinct and robotic precision. One of the engineers, a young woman named Mia, spoke up. "That's actually brilliant," she said, her tone filled with awe. "We could integrate a biometric sensor that reads the surgeon's pulse and breathing rate, and then adjust the robot's movements in real time." Naomi smiled. "Exactly. It's about complementing the human, not replacing them." The team was buzzing with excitement now. The idea had opened up a whole new direction for the project, and everyone could see how it would revolutionize the way robotic surgery was done. It wasn't just about the technology anymore. It was about the synergy between humans and machines. Kamiko, who had been quietly observing the conversation, stood up and addressed the room. "Naomi, I think you've just solved our biggest problem," she said, her voice filled with admiration. "This is why I brought you on board. Your ability to think outside the box is exactly what we needed." Naomi felt a rush of pride, but she didn't let it go to her head. She knew that this was just one step in a much larger journey. The project was still far from complete, and there were many more challenges to overcome. But in that moment, Naomi realized how far she had come. She had gone from being a waitress who was overlooked and underestimated to being a leader at the helm of a groundbreaking project that could change the future of medicine. As the weeks passed, Naomi continued to guide the team through the final stages of development. The pressure never eased, but she thrived under it. She had learned to trust her instincts, to speak up when she had something to say, and to lead with both confidence and humility. Kamiko's trust in her had not been misplaced. The launch day arrived faster than Naomi expected. The system was ready, the team was prepared, and all eyes were on Hoshiko AI as they prepared to unveil the new technology to the world. Naomi stood with Kamiko on the stage, watching the audience as they waited for the presentation to begin. It felt surreal. She had gone from being a part of the background, invisible and unnoticed, to being a key player in one of the most important moments of the company's history. The presentation went flawlessly. The new robotic surgery system, with its innovative human feedback features, was met with resounding applause. The medical community hailed it as a revolutionary advancement, and the company's stock prices soared. Naomi felt a sense of fulfillment, but also a sense of quiet determination. This was just the beginning. She knew that she could accomplish more, that she could continue to push boundaries, and that this victory was just one of many that lay ahead. As the team celebrated their success, Naomi stepped outside for a moment of quiet reflection. She thought back to that first dinner at the Palisade, the way she had spoken up when no one else would, the way Kamiko had seen her potential when others had overlooked her. She realized that every step, every challenge, and every victory had brought her here, to a place where she knew she could make a difference, and where she had the power to change the world. The months following the successful launch of the robotic surgery system brought with them both triumph and new challenges. Naomi found herself at the center of Hoshiko AI's most ambitious project yet, expanding their technology into international markets. With the company's success growing, so did the pressure to innovate even further. Kamiko had entrusted Naomi with overseeing the development of new features for the robotic system, pushing the boundaries of medical technology. It was an exciting time, but it was also a constant balancing act. Naomi had learned that leadership wasn't just about having the best ideas. It was about managing a team, handling expectations, and making tough decisions that would shape the future of the company. As her influence within the company grew, so did the attention she received. Hoshiko AI was now recognized as one of the leading innovators in medical technology, and the industry's eyes were firmly on Naomi and Kamiko. Journalists, potential investors, and tech enthusiasts were eager to get a glimpse of what the company was working on next. One afternoon, Naomi was preparing for a high-profile conference where she would be speaking about the future of AI and surgery. It was a moment she had been preparing for, but as the event drew closer, a wave of nerves crept over her. She had come so far, but now she was about to step into the spotlight on a global stage. Kamiko, sensing her hesitation, pulled her aside just before the presentation. "You've earned this moment, Naomi," Kamiko said, her voice calm but firm. "Remember that this is not just about technology. It's about people. You've always understood that better than anyone." Naomi nodded, absorbing Kamiko's words. She had spent years in the shadows, learning to navigate people's expectations, finding her voice in situations where she was expected to remain silent. Now, she was not only speaking for herself, but for a company that had become a beacon of hope for the future of medicine. When Naomi took the stage, the room was packed with some of the most influential minds in the tech and medical fields. The pressure was immense, but as she stood in front of the audience, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. This wasn't just about presenting cutting-edge technology, it was about sharing a vision. She spoke passionately about the importance of integrating AI with human touch, of creating technology that could amplify the abilities of medical professionals, not replace them. "We are on the cusp of a revolution," Naomi said, her voice steady, her words resonating with the audience. "But it's not just about building better machines. It's about understanding the people who will use them. We need to design technology that listens, that learns, and that helps people reach their full potential." The room was silent for a moment, and then the applause began. Naomi could see the admiration in the faces of the crowd. They weren't just applauding the technology, they were applauding the vision behind it, the human element that Naomi had always believed was at the heart of innovation. As she walked off the stage, she was met with congratulations from industry leaders and investors eager to collaborate. But it wasn't the praise that mattered most to Naomi. It was the sense of fulfillment she felt knowing that she was making a real difference. Kamiko was. "They're waiting for her." "You did it," she said, her eyes filled with pride. Naomi smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied. Kamiko's mentorship had shaped her journey, and now, Naomi was stepping into her own. In the months that followed, Naomi became a sought-after speaker and thought leader in the tech and medical communities. But she never lost sight of the values that had brought her here. She continued to work closely with Kamiko, leading new initiatives and shaping the future of the company. Together, they were pushing the boundaries of what technology could do for humanity. Naomi had gone from being an overlooked waitress to a leader who was changing the world. She had proven that with vision, determination, and the courage to speak up, anything was possible. The future was wide open, and Naomi knew that no matter what came next, she was ready to face it. She had earned her place at the table, and now, she was helping to build a seat for others who had been overlooked, just as she once was. As Naomi stood on the balcony of her apartment overlooking the city, she reflected on the incredible journey that had brought her here. The road had not been easy, but every challenge, every setback, and every breakthrough had shaped her into the leader she was today. She had come a long way from the woman who once felt invisible, overlooked, and dismissed. Now, she was the one making decisions, leading a team, and driving innovation. The tech world and the medical world had taken notice of her, and she had earned her place in both. But Naomi knew that this wasn't the end of her story. It was only the beginning. As Hoshiko AI continued to grow and expand, so did the impact Naomi was making. The robotic surgery system that she had helped develop was now saving lives in hospitals around the world. It was an achievement she was incredibly proud of, but what made it even more meaningful was the knowledge that the work she did wasn't just about technology, it was about people. Her vision of combining cutting-edge AI with human understanding had become the cornerstone of Hoshiko's success. Naomi had always believed that technology should serve humanity, not replace it, and now she was seeing that belief come to life. The company was about more than just profits and products. It was about improving lives, about making a tangible difference in the world. One day, Kamiko called Naomi into her office with an urgent request. The company had been approached by a major international hospital network that wanted to partner with Hoshiko AI to roll out their robotic surgery systems across hospitals globally. The deal was massive, potentially worth billions of dollars, but it would require Naomi to take on a new level of responsibility. Kamiko was confident that Naomi could handle it. "This is your moment, Naomi," Kamiko said. "We've built something incredible together, and now it's time to take it to the next level. This partnership could change the course of healthcare as we know it, and I know you're the one who can make it happen." Naomi took a deep breath. The stakes were high, but she had already proven that she could rise to the challenge. "I'm ready," Naomi replied, her voice steady and filled with determination. With Kamiko's guidance, Naomi led the negotiations, traveling to meet with the hospital executives, presenting Hoshiko's vision, and ensuring that the partnership aligned with the company's values. It wasn't just about the financial reward. It was about ensuring that the technology was accessible to those who needed it most. Naomi worked tirelessly, balancing the complexities of the deal while keeping the company's mission front and center. As the partnership was finalized and the first hospitals began to implement Hoshiko's robotic systems, Naomi stood alongside Kamiko at a press conference announcing the global expansion. The room was filled with journalists and industry leaders, and Naomi could feel the weight of the moment. But she was no longer the woman who had been afraid to step into the spotlight. She was confident, poised, and ready to lead. Kamiko stood next to her, a proud smile on her face. "This is the future of healthcare," Kamiko said, her voice strong. "And Naomi Brooks has been at the heart of it all." Naomi felt a rush of pride, but it wasn't about the accolades. It was about knowing that the work they had done at Hoshiko AI was changing lives, improving healthcare, and giving people a chance at a better future. As the press conference wrapped up and the cameras faded away, Naomi walked out into the hallway, her mind racing with the possibilities that lay ahead. She had built something extraordinary with Kamiko and the Hoshiko team, and the world was just beginning to see the impact they would make. Naomi had started as a waitress who was dismissed by the world, but she had proven that no matter where you come from, you can shape your own destiny. She had fought for her place at the table, and now, she was making sure that others who had been overlooked would have a seat there too. As she stood in that moment, Naomi knew that this was just the beginning. There were still so many lives to touch, so many innovations to create, and so many barriers to break. And she was ready to take on whatever came next, with the same courage, determination, and vision that had brought her this far. She had earned her place in the world of the powerful, and she was going to make sure that her story, just like the technology she had helped create, would have a lasting impact. In this powerful journey of triumph and resilience, Naomi Brooks transforms from an overlooked waitress to a groundbreaking leader at a leading AI medical technology company. As she rises through the ranks of Hoshiko AI, Naomi's story demonstrates the power of determination and the importance of finding one's voice, even when faced with adversity. Her journey mirrors many Black stories of overcoming challenges and breaking through barriers in industries where they are often underrepresented. From the moment Naomi stood up for herself at a dinner to leading innovative projects in robotic surgery, her path is a testament to the impact of self-belief and courage. Kamiko Hayashi, Naomi's mentor, also plays a crucial role in her growth, guiding her through the complexities of business leadership while instilling the importance of respect and humility. Together, they prove that true success comes from embracing one's unique perspective and breaking down societal barriers. This narrative not only highlights Naomi's personal growth, but also serves as an inspiration for many Black stories in the world of tech, where the odds are often stacked against marginalized communities. Naomi's leadership and innovative ideas eventually lead her to spearhead a global partnership, pushing the boundaries of medical technology and changing the way healthcare is delivered. This success isn't just about technology. It's about empowerment and uplifting others who have been overlooked, just like Naomi once was. The journey of Naomi Brooks, shaped by resilience and the support of powerful mentors, is a prime example of how Black stories can redefine industries, influence change, and inspire future generations. As Naomi continues to rise, her story stands as a beacon of hope and possibility, showing that no matter where you start, determination and the courage to speak out can lead to extraordinary accomplishments.